I never imagined that the last years of my life would be shadowed not by grief alone, but by betrayal. Betrayal from someone who was supposed to be family. My name isn't important, not compared to the story I need to tell. This is about what happened after my husband, Hamid, died and how his own daughter-in-law tried to erase me from the life we built together. Hamid was not born rich. The 77 million we eventually accumulated didn't fall from the sky. It was built brick by brick, sacrifice by sacrifice. He worked through sickness and through scorching summers, while I managed our home, raised our children, and cooked meals he often ate cold because meetings ran late. We lived modestly for years, putting every extra rupee into the business he dreamed of making strong enough to outlive us. And it did. But not without a cost. The real cost was learning who truly stood by us and who was waiting only for their turn to collect. My daughter-in-law, Sana, entered our family 5 years ago. At first, I tried to welcome her with warmth. She seemed polite, soft-spoken, and ambitious. I took those as positive traits. But after the wedding dust settled, her real nature began to unfold, subtly at first, then boldly like a curtain whipping open. She was obsessed with money, not earning it, not building it, only receiving it. Whenever Hamid updated the business records, Sana would find a way to peek in. Whenever we bought something for the house, she commented that the money should be saved for the younger generation, not wasted on old people. Old people. That was what she began calling us, more often me than Hamid. When Hamid fell ill during his final months, she barely visited. The few times she did, it was to ask pointless questions disguised as concern. "Papa, did you ever finalize your will? Papa, you must have written everything clearly, right? Papa, you don't want confusion after you pass, right?" She said it with a sweet smile, but her eyes gleamed with calculation. Hamid noticed he wasn't naive. Some nights when we were alone in bed, he would sigh and say, "People change when money enters the picture. But don't worry, I know what I'm doing." At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. The day he died, Sana hugged me with dry eyes. I cried on her shoulder, and she patted my back as though brushing off dust. Hours later, while I was still trying to breathe through my loss, she whispered to her husband, my son, thinking I couldn't hear, "She will get nothing. It's better for us this way, nothing." As if the decades I spent beside Hamid were worth nothing. As if my entire life could be dismissed with a single sentence spoken by someone who hadn't even been in our family long enough to know the smell of his favorite tea. After the funeral, Sana's tone became more direct, almost triumphant. One evening, as I sat quietly in the living room, she leaned over and said, "Just prepare yourself. The will reading is in a week, and you shouldn't expect any surprises." Papa knew where the money should go. Her smirk was unforgettable, sharp, cruel, dripping with confidence. For the first time since Hamid's death, I felt a spark of anger beneath my grief. Not for the money, never for the money, but for the disrespect, the assumption, the entitlement. Sana genuinely believed I was nothing. She acted as though I had no right to the life I helped build. A week later, we all sat in the lawyer's office, Sana practically glowing. My son stiff and silent, and me holding on to the memory of the man who would never have let me face humiliation alone. What I didn't know then was that Hamid had left behind more than wealth. He had left behind truth, and soon that truth would wipe the smile off Sana's face forever. The lawyer's office was colder than I remembered. Not in temperature, no. The chill came from the people sitting around me. Sana had taken the seat directly across from the lawyer, as if she were the most important person in the room. She sat upright, legs crossed, a designer bag balanced on her knee, and a smile spreading across her face like she already owned everything. My son, Amir, sat beside her, but he wasn't smiling. His shoulders were tense, his eyes fixed on the floor. He looked like a man standing between a rock and a storm, the rock being his own conscience, and the storm being his wife. I sat quietly near the corner of the table, clutching the handkerchief Hamid used to keep in his pocket. It still smelled faintly of his cologne. Warm, earthy, comforting. It gave me strength. The lawyer, Mr. Qureshi, shuffled through his papers with calm precision. He was an old friend of Hamid's, a man with silver hair and eyes that noticed more than he said. When he looked at me, he nodded gently, and for a moment I felt seen, but Sana couldn't stay silent for long. "Mr. Qureshi," she said with a brightness that grated on my nerves, "you can skip the formalities. We're all here to hear the distribution. Just tell us what Papa left behind." Her tone carried the arrogance of someone who believed the world owed her something. Mr. Qureshi raised an eyebrow. Mrs. Sana, the law requires that the will be read properly. Please allow me to proceed. She let out a short laugh and waved her hand dismissively. Of course, of course. I'm just saying no need to drag it out. We already know how Papa wanted things. Did she? Did she really? The way she said, Papa, made my stomach twist. She used the word as though it came with a price tag. The lawyer began reading the formal statements, Hamid's full name, the date of the will, the witnesses. Sana exhaled loudly, as if every second spent following the law was a personal inconvenience. When Mr. Qureshi moved to the next page, she leaned toward Amir and whispered loudly enough for me to hear, "Just wait. It's all coming to us. He won't leave her anything." He knew she didn't need it. She, not Ami, not Mama, not even Mother. Just she. A stranger would have spoken with more respect. I stared at my lap, letting her cruelty wash over me. My grief sat heavy in my chest, but beneath it, something else was brewing. Something sharper, something that whispered that Hamid had known what he was doing before he left this world. As the reading continued, Mr. Qureshi's face grew more pointed, almost deliberate. His voice slowed when he reached the section Sana was the most eager for, the division of assets. Sana leaned forward, lips parted, eyes gleaming. Her body practically vibrated with anticipation. She interrupted again. Yes, this part. This is the important one. Papa told us he didn't want confusion. Ooze, he told us? I knew Hamid. He'd never discuss the will with her. Not with that woman. Mr. Qureshi cleared his throat firmly. If you interrupt again, I will stop the reading entirely. This document is not about you. It is about the deceased and his final wishes. Sana's eyes narrowed at being scolded, but she forced a smile to hide the anger brewing beneath her perfectly done makeup. I sat still, watching, listening. My heart pounded against my ribs with every word the lawyer read. A strange calmness settled over me, like the silence before a storm. Hamid had been mysterious in his final days, asking odd questions, studying people quietly, writing notes in a small leather book he kept hidden. He had said, "People show their hearts when they think no one is watching." That sentence echoed in my mind now. Mr. Qureshi reached the end of the first document. He paused. Too long enough for Sana's smile to falter slightly. Then he placed the papers down slowly. And for the first time since I walked in, I felt that something was about to break open. Something larger than any of us expected. A shift in the air. A tightening in Sana's posture. A glimmer in the lawyer's eyes. I didn't know it yet, but the real will, the real truth, was about to surface. And the look on Sana's face would never be the same again. For a long moment, the room was silent. Only the ticking wall clock filled the space between us, each second slicing through the air like a blade. Sana's confident posture stiffened. Her smile wavered, then reformed, as if she were forcing it back into place. Mr. Qureshi tapped the papers once, set them aside, and then, unexpectedly, leaned back in his chair with a slow, not a small chuckle, not a polite smile, a full, genuine laugh of disbelief. Sana's head jerked up. "What's so funny?" she demanded, her voice sharp, her smile finally cracking. I watched quietly, my heart fluttering like a bird trapped in a cage. This was unusual. Lawyers didn't laugh during will readings, especially not when millions were involved. Mr. Qureshi wiped a tear from the corner of his eye and exhaled. "Oh, Sana," he said, shaking his head. "I was wondering how long you would pretend." "Pretend what?" she snapped. "This is very unprofessional." "Unprofessional," he repeated slowly. "Is someone trying to manipulate a dying man into changing his will?" Sana's face paled. Amir's breath caught. I felt my hands freeze around the handkerchief in my lap. Qureshi reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed brown envelope. Thick, he placed it on the table with a heavy thud. "This," he said, "is the actual will, the updated version, the one your father-in-law signed after he discovered everything." Sana's mouth dropped open. "Everything? What are you talking about? Papa didn't update anything." Mr. Qureshi's smile turned thin. "Are you sure? Because he sat in this very office months before he passed and handed me video recordings, audio clips, financial logs, and a detailed handwritten note documenting incidents of, let's call it, moral bankruptcy." My breath hitched. Hamid recorded things. "He never told me." Sana shot to her feet. She shouted, "This is fake. This is—" "Sit down," the lawyer ordered, his voice suddenly sharp. "This is a legal proceeding, not your living room." Sana dropped back into her seat, Trembling with fury, Mr. Qureshi broke the seal and pulled out several sheets of paper, each stamped and signed with Hamid's unmistakable signature. He cleared his throat and began reading. To my beloved wife, the woman who stood by me for more than 4 decades, I leave full authority over my estate and all assets totaling 77 million. My vision blurred. For a moment I forgot to breathe. But Sana wasn't done. What about us? She screeched. Mr. Qureshi continued as if she hadn't spoken. To my son, who remains good at heart but easily influenced, I leave a chance to find his own path, with no financial burden or benefit from this inheritance. Amir gasped. Sana's hand flew to his arm, gripping him like a lifeline. And to you, Sana, the lawyer said, turning a page slowly, almost deliberately, your father-in-law left a personal message. He held up a smaller, handwritten note. Sana reached for it. Back. I will read it. Sana's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent. Mr. Qureshi read aloud. Sana, you showed me who you were the moment you believed I could no longer see. You spoke loudly when you thought I wasn't listening. You counted money before I was buried. You dishonored my wife in her final years. Therefore, you will receive exactly what you showed her nothing. Sana let out a strangled sound. Half scream, half disbelief. You can't do this. She shouted at me as if I had written the will myself. This is a setup. A joke? A scam. Mr. Qureshi placed the documents neatly on the table. This will is legal, verified and witnessed. Your husband and his mother are the only family here with any rights. You, Sana, have none. Amir covered his face with both hands. Sana turned toward me, eyes burning with hatred. You knew, she hissed. I shook my head. I didn't, but he did, and in that moment, I felt it, the first flicker of justice. It glowed warm and steady, like the beginning of dawn. The meeting room emptied slowly. Amir walked out in silence, shoulders hunched, avoiding everyone's eyes. Sana stormed ahead of him, her heels striking the floor with wild anger, leaving behind a trail of curses that didn't touch me. I remained seated for a moment, letting everything settle inside me like dust finally resting after a storm. The lawyer gathered the documents gently and looked at me with soft eyes. He trusted you completely, he said. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat ached with a mix of grief, relief, and something I hadn't felt in months, peace. When I finally stepped outside, Sana was having a meltdown in the corridor. Angry tears smeared her makeup, her voice rising with desperation. This isn't over. I'll sue. I'll expose all of you. You think she deserves this money? She's old. She'll waste it. She pointed at me as if I were a thief. For the first time, I met her eyes without lowering mine. You wanted everything, I said quietly. But you forgot one thing. Respect for the man whose money you were counting. She stared at me, stunned that I finally spoke. You will regret this, she spat. I already regretted accepting you as family, I replied. Her face twisted, but before she could speak again, Mr. Qureshi stepped between us. I advise you to leave Sana, he said firmly. Why? Because you're all against me? She shrieked. No, he said. Because the only thing you're inheriting today is the truth. She let out a furious cry and stormed out of the building, dragging Amir with her. He didn't even look back. Maybe shame was heavier than anger. The following days were strangely quiet. I wandered through the house Hamid and I had built, touching the worn armrests of our sofa, running my fingers along the picture frames on the wall, breathing in the familiar scent of home. Each room held memories, whispers, echoes of a life built with love, not greed. For the first time since his death, I felt him everywhere. But now, it didn't hurt, it comforted me. One afternoon, I found a sealed letter tucked inside his bedside drawer. My hands trembled as I opened it. My love, if you're reading this, it means my time has ended but yours continues. Spend the years ahead with joy, not fear. Those who betray your kindness will face their own downfall. You do not have to seek revenge, life will do that for you. Use what I left behind to live. Really live. With all my love, Hamid. Tears flowed freely, but not from grief, from closure, and so I decided to honor him. Not with anger, not with petty revenge, but with purpose. I met with purpose. Qureshi again, this time with clarity in my heart. I want to create something, I told him. In Hamid's name, something good. Within 3 months, we established a scholarship fund for hardworking, underprivileged students, a shelter for elderly women abandoned by their families, a charity supporting small business owner struggling to survive, a free medical camp named Hamid's Hands, Every rupee spent felt like placing a flower on Hamid's memory. Meanwhile, Sana and Amir's world began collapsing. The lavish apartment they rented, too expensive. The car payments they assumed they'd manage with inheritance. Impossible. The lifestyle they flaunted online, unsustainable. People who once praised Sana began distancing themselves when they realized she had no fortune behind her arrogance. Amir tried finding better work, but Sana's constant bitterness poisoned every opportunity. But I never interfered. I never spoke a word against them. I simply watched from afar as life delivered the justice Hamid promised in his letter. One cool morning, I visited his grave with fresh rose petals. I sat beside the marble stone and whispered, "It's done, Hamid. You protected me even after leaving this world, and I've used your gift to protect others." The breeze brushed my cheek as if he answered. I smiled, a deep, genuine smile that rose from my soul. Sana thought revenge was about destroying someone's life. But my sweetest revenge was this: living well, living peacefully, and ensuring Hamid's legacy became a light for others, while she was left alone with the darkness she created for herself.